to Wounded on Sixes. Today we're going to be taking a look at a list from my Adeptus Mechanicus I'm calling the Haloscreed MSU. We're going to go over the list, talk about the strategy, and figure out if we can increase the win rate of the Adeptus Mechanicus using a multiple small unit strategy. Let's get started on the list breakdown. We're going to first get started with the battle line units, and we're going to start with 3 units of Skitarii Vanguard. They're each going to have an arc rifle in there, and that's about it. No characters, nothing else, just keeping it pretty cheap. 95 points for each of these. And as we know, as we've looked over in many Adeptus Mechanicus lists, battle line units do get to drive a couple of the special abilities on other units' data sheets. So having at least 3 of these units is important. I thought about maybe bringing more. I just don't get enough utility out of my Skitarii as I once used to. Maybe in 9th edition when we can bring 20-man bricks. I would love to see 20-man bricks come back. But these units are really good for holding down an objective and also decreasing our opponent's ability to hold objectives because of their rad saturation. So they're a pretty decent unit to have sitting on an objective. They can put in some work against some light infantry, but they're not really going to take down anything better than that. We really want to just kind of keep these guys in cover, keep them on the objectives, and keep them buffing out the rest of our unit with all those little battle line keywords there. But, we definitely could bring more. And in MSU, I really thought about it, but my thinking was, if we're going to bring MSU, I need something that can both last a little bit longer than these light, T3 infantry bodies, but could also put some damage into something, which these guys really aren't good at doing that except for light to maybe medium infantry. So only bringing the 3 because they're also quite expensive, 95 points for the Vanguard. I kind of wish they were a little bit less for 10 T3 bodies, but beggars can't be choosers. I'm only going with the 3, but that's 3 units in a conjunction with all the other multiple small units we're going to be using in this list. The list is going to have 2 units of Taraxi. We're going to have a unit of Sterilizors and a unit of Skystalkers. These guys are just going to sit in deep strike, come down on the board, probably turn 2 or turn 3, and really just look to score. Not really looking to get aggressive with these units here. They're really just a way to kind of pepper ourselves around the board, a nice deep strike threat to kind of keep our opponent honest and in the backfield, but they're not very strong. They do have a couple of unique abilities that we could determine where we're going to place them on the board. Like the Sterilizors are pretty good in an Overwatch capacity, so you definitely want to keep that in mind. They also get better when they're near battle line. So for instance, if we feel like our natural expansion is being threatened, we could always kind of drop these guys down to help support, whether it be an infantry brick there or not, and also give an Overwatch threat. Whereas the Skystalkers have a shoot and move, so if we needed to, we could use them as kind of like a move blocker later in the game. But for the most part, the primary mission of these guys is to get down in a position and help us score some secondary points and also screen out different parts of the board. Because we're running an MSU type strategy, we want to try to get as many places on the board as possible, making it impossible for our opponent to concentrate in any one area, allowing our multiple small units to continue to thrive, continue to score without our opponent's harassment. And again, these Taraxi are really good at making sure we're going to come down and get those secondary points when we need them, particularly the proximity ones, like behind enemy lines, like engage in all fronts. So yes, very good. Definitely want the Taraxi to sit in deep strike. I don't ever really start these guys on the board because most of their utility is their ability to come down where I need them. We now move over to a nice little infantry package here where we're going to have a couple of little different melee infantry units here. We're going to have 1 unit of Ruststalkers. Now the Ruststalkers are good, but they're pretty weak. They don't really stand up in a fight, but they can be put into a very particular situation where they might be successful, where we can get a charge on them. We definitely don't want to have them charged. We can afford to keep them back because they have such a long movement or assault range, because we can, add +2 if they're within 6 inches of battle line. So we can kind of keep them back and use them as like a scalpel, a very surgical tool to maybe take out a threatening infantry unit that's coming after one of our little MSU bricks, maybe somewhere on the board, particularly around either the middle of the board or our natural expansion objective. I don't want to try to bully people with these guys because they're just not that tough, but the dev wounds definitely help them to punch up just a tad. So if you have something like, an infantry unit moving up the flank or moving to try to take the center, we can throw these guys at them and hope to like blunt them, deflect them, or at least kind of cripple the unit that they're going out after, to give us a better chance. We then have 2 units of infiltrators. These guys will be starting out in the middle of the board, helping to get us set up, helping to stage some of our MSU units out on the board. Because we are playing MSU, we're not going to have a lot of space left in that deployment zone. I mean, we're really trying to spread out here, and these guys will help us get the jump on spreading out, as well as giving us a little bit more room in the deployment zone by kind of starting out there in the middle of the board. They're not bad at kind of denying primary for our opponents too. Their Ghost of the Machine ability can force some battle shocks as well. So, they definitely do have some utility, but much like the Ruststalkers, they do not hold up to a lot of fighting. So we kind of want to use them sparingly, use them to screen out, and then, sacrifice them when appropriate. A lot of playing this MSU style is going to require us to make some quality trades, and we have some cheap infantry here to kind of trade with our opponent and hopefully keep them off the primary, allowing us to continue to score. We definitely want to try to be a primary army here, where we are trying to put ourselves everywhere on every objective and continuously just have our opponent have to grind through some of our smaller units. Next is a unit that I'm just trying. I've been wanting to put them in my Haloscreed list for a while, and that is going to be a unit of Fulgurite Electro-Priests with a Dominus riding inside of a Dune Rider. Now, what's really cool about this is that in the Haloscreed detachment, we do have an ability to allow a unit that comes out of a transport to advance and charge, and that's why we have these units here. This is a great kind of assault unit where we can drive them up, have them disembark, and then charge. We definitely want to use that to our advantage. Like I said, we don't really have a lot of ways to bully people in this list because we're going with that MSU, survive on the corners, try to outscore our opponent kind of list. And this is going to be kind of like one of the few hammers that we have. Definitely could be a way of like distracting our opponent, particularly on their natural expansion. Drive this Dune Rider up, have them get out, and have them become a nuisance, at least for one turn. They do have some dev wounds, so they can kind of punch up. I'm not expecting this unit to survive very long, although the Dominus does give them a 4-up, feel no pain, so they'll have a 5-up, 4-up, but they're only 1 wound, so they do kind of crumble pretty quickly. So we want to make sure that they can get in, do a bunch of damage, and then maybe force our opponent to deal with them for 1 turn. That would be absolutely fantastic if we can get that to happen, because again, with MSU, we're really just trying to delay our opponent off primary. We're trying to keep them busy with certain units, but we don't really have a lot of ability to bully them off of points, and this is one of the few kind of like assault units that we can maybe attempt to do that with. We're now going to move over to some of the heavier support, and I do have a 6-man unit of Breachers led by the Manipulus. They are going to have the cognitive reinforcement, so they'll be in both doctrinas throughout the game, which is really nice. So they'll be able to punch and they'll be able to shoot without having to worry about which doctrina we're using. The Breachers are a difficult unit to use. In all of my games, I either use them to perfection or I kind of waste them. Couple of notes here is that they fold pretty quick, so you don't want to put them in a lot of firepower lanes. You want to kind of use their infantry-ness as an advantage, kind of hide them behind a wall, wait for a monster or vehicle unit to kind of come within range of you, and then pop out of the wall. These guys are way more effective when they can get their rapid fire in. When they can't get their rapid fire in, their efficiency is literally cut in half. So you want to make sure that you're kind of holding back with this unit It's an expensive unit. You want to kind of, I like to use it where I let my opponent come in. So I'm looking to maybe put these guys toward like the center of the battlefield so they could pop out of a center ruin and, you know, kind of really give us a good, you know, maybe a good kill of some kind of vehicle or something like that, but also maybe hold that center position for a minute, maybe do some melee into that center position before they eventually get picked up off the board. But you certainly can waste these guys if you just kind of throw them out there. They don't get their rapid fire. You'd be surprised at how bad their efficiency is when they're not in rapid fire range. We also have to consider that we really want a battle line unit within 6 so we can make sure that we get the full reroll. So I have definitely cut out the robots here to fit in an MSU, and you know, a 6-man Breaker Breachers isn't very MSU, but I wanted like one of those kind of like Death Star units, something that I could keep in the center of the board to at least give my opponent some second thoughts on moving into the center of the board and knowing that he's going to have to deal with these breachers there. But again, you really want to make sure that you're using these guys effectively and not just throwing them out there, because they don't get that rapid fire. They lose a lot of efficiency. We then have a bunch of chickens and a bunch of dragoons. So we're going to have 2 single Sydonian Dragoons, and we're going to have 3 las cannon chickens running solo here. And the reason is that, again, we're playing the MSU style, and these are really great MSU type units. Like, they really can't kill any one unit on their own, but they are T7 with 7 wounds. They move really quick. The dragoons can fall back and charge. The chickens can fall back and shoot. So they're really hard to lock down, and we can put them anywhere on the board. They can move really fast. You know, the chickens themselves can, like, you know, you could get lucky and destroy an enemy tank or a hurt enemy tank with them quite easily with their D6 +1 plus the sustained hits. And the dragoons are really good against things like walkers with their anti-walker and their lance ability, but also they can, you know, put a hurt into some infantry as well. So what I like about having these guys is they're little units. We can get them all over the place. And it's really hard to lock down any one thing. You know, maybe our opponent may be able to concentrate down on one, but they won't be able to concentrate down on all 5 at once. So again, we're running that MSU. We're trying to keep our bodies across the board for as long as possible. And it makes it much more difficult when our opponent has to spend time targeting a single unit at a time. We also have the ability to kind of keep these guys hidden better, since they're not going to be in units of 2 or 3. It's a much smaller surface area to hide in ruins or behind buildings and stuff like that. So, you know, using these guys sparingly, maybe putting 1 or 2 out at a time, maybe trying to run up the flank and establish a position maybe in our opponent's deployment zone on the other side of the board where they've been maybe concentrating on our infantry. That could be a strategy there too, where you're kind of having these guys, you know, maybe a group of them running up a flank to try to bully our opponent off their home objective if they've left that flank open and they've been concentrating on the middle and the other flank. So, you know, we can kind of like match a lot of our opponent's speed too. There's some slower armies out there that just won't be able to catch up with these chickens, and we can kind of, rather than just using them as offensive pieces, use them to get around the board and help us to score, help us to put OC onto objectives that our opponent may not see coming. So I really like their speed. I like that they can kind of deal with individual threats on their own as well. You know, we'll see how it goes. I'm thinking maybe I don't need the last chickens. Maybe the autocannon chickens are the way to go, but we just already have so much infantry. Kind of wanted a little bit more punch with them in general, because they are, for the most part, going to be targeting enemy vehicles and not enemy infantry. So that's why I'm kind of sticking with the las chickens here. You let me know what you think in the comments. Finally, we're going to be rounding it out with 2 Onager Dunecrawlers. Each are going to have that neutron laser. I really like the neutron laser. Strength 16, -4. It just naturally can punch into vehicles, especially ones that only have a 3-up save. They're really effective, but they're also good at keeping our Skitarii alive because they give them a 4-up involve. They're wholly within 6 inches of them. And they also have a 4-up involve themselves. They also can pop smoke if they need to. So they can be really, really difficult to shift. Actually, even more difficult to shift than the disintegrators, if you ask me, just because that 4-up involve, it can mean a lot, especially against some really, really powerful stuff out there that even with the 2-up armor, the Scorpius Disintegrator just has no chance of. So I like the Onager Dunecrawlers just because they have a little bit more staying power. And, you know, they're one of the few units in the list that's going to be like anchor units, where they're going to anchor a certain part of the board. They're going to get into position. They're going to take advantage of having heavy on their neutron laser, and they're kind of just going to sit there and provide buffs to our Skitarii if we need it, but also just provide really heavy fire support with that neutron laser. So I'm really, really happy with that one. So this is the list. This is the Haloscreed MSU. And, you know, Haloscreed's really good for like picking 2 units and giving them a buff. In this list, it's mostly going to be defensive buffs. So the stealth, the +1 toughness, particularly like on the chickens and stuff like that. If we need to keep one of them alive, they're a great target to give the Haloscreed. And as you can see, this is one of the few Haloscreed lists that I've written that doesn't have the robots. I know they kind of got a glow up, but you know, the dyad wafers aren't as effective as they used to now because they already have the Doctrinas, and the robots are really expensive. They're hard to kind of use because they only move 6. Yes, you can pump that up in Haloscreed by giving, you know, giving them an extra 2 inches. But then you're like giving that extra 2 inches to other units that really don't need it. So, and they're really expensive. It's just hard to fit a lot of stuff. And I knew I couldn't do the MSU and have the big robot brick here. So I compromised. I brought the big breacher brick, but not the robots. We'll see how this goes. MSU is it's a difficult strategy to play because, you know, you're kind of reliant on bodies rather than being tough and overall hardy on objectives, which can be difficult. But, you know, we could also hope to kind of outlast our opponents by being sneaky, by being tricksy, by using our Haloscreed targets properly to make sure we're buffing the right units in the game. And also having a much more effective strategy with your Doctrinas. This isn't just a sit in Protector, sit in Conqueror kind of Doctrina list. I think it's kind of a mix of both, so you definitely want to take that into consideration. This is a list that I think needs to be practiced a lot, which I haven't really gotten a chance to practice with it, but I do hope to get some games with it soon, as I have a vacation from work coming up soon. So let me know what you think of the list. Go ahead and like if you enjoyed. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're edging so close to 1,000 subs, and I want to thank everybody who's been tuning in, leaving likes, leaving comments. I appreciate it so much, and I just want to thank everybody for coming back for more Wounded on Sixes.